Wearing the WBO shirt, I know you've had a lot of involvement with them. I would like you to speak to us about your involvement with them, and also the WBO is an organization that just to recently it wasn't very highly recognized. Now it's known as one of the four major organizations. Tell us a little bit about how the WBO went from being unknown to getting to be one of the major organizations that it is.
Okay, when WBO commenced, even though it was a Puerto Rican based organization, they only had one enemy, and that was Mario Rivera Martino, criticizing, the only one that was criticizing this Puerto Rican organization, because in their early years, I'm sorry to say, they had very poor champions. In the early years, they were totally disorganized. In the early years, it was an affair where you were gifted, so to speak, with titles. You were gifted with high rankings, and at that time, the major force in the WBO was a close associate of the WBA by the name of Pepe Cordero, and shortly after that period of time, the government of Puerto Rico asked me to be the president of the Boxing Commission. And once I got into the Boxing Commission, I began to sort of try to weed out any interest that the commission or anybody had with boxing. And at the same time, I made a very strong intent to clear up the situation in WBO, and at the same time, attorney at Francisco Valcárcel got into the organization, and the moment he got into WBO, I began to change my picture, and I began to write favorably about WBO.
Okay, Mario, I know you have a long history in the sports, so it would be hard to cover it all in one sit down. My last question to you is I would like you to tell us about some of the greatest moments that you have had in boxing, and boxing has been a life thing for you. What has boxing meant for you?
Well, number one, I would say my one initial great feeling was covering Joe Louis's tour, and of course shining the shoes of the great Sixto Escobar and Pedro Montañez. But in later years, when I was a more mature figure in the boxing game, being president of the Boxing Commission in Puerto Rico was a big boost for me. Joining the Boxing Hall of Fame as a delegate of the Canastota Hall of Fame was also an honorable thing for me to really boost up my feelings for boxing. But primarily, I remember with great feelings that great moment when a 17-year-old fighter by the name of Wilfredo Benitez won a title, a world title, a feat that has not been broken to date. Wilfredo Benitez beat Kid Pambele from Venezuela for the junior welterweight title in Puerto Rico. I thought that was a great moment in boxing. I thought it was a great moment also to see that great fight in New Orleans when Wilfredo Gomez knocked out Lupe Pintor toward the closing rounds of the fight, in a fight that I think he was losing. I thought that was a moment, that was an unforgettable moment in boxing history. The tour that Carlos Ortiz made in Puerto Rico, which I covered all of his fights at that time, his great fights in Puerto Rico in the early part of his career, that is also an unforgettable moment. And of course, in later years, the rise of Tito Trinidad in boxing, I thought was a magnificent moment in Puerto Rican history, and we cannot forget for one moment Wilfredo Benitez, not only for that fight with Pambele, but with his subsequent great victories and that title turnaround at that 147, which he lost to Sugar Ray Leonard in the closing moments of the last round.
Okay. Mario, lastly, boxing, there's a lot of negativity. Sometimes it's talked about boxing. You lived the whole life in boxing. Tell us what boxing has meant to you.
Boxing, to me, has been an integral part of my life. Boxing, to me, has meant the idea, principally, of helping these young boys grow up and get into something and away from drugs. Boxing has not been a monetary project for me. I've never thought about boxing in the matter of making money, but in helping the fighters, in helping the trainers, and in helping clean up the sport so that these young men have a career in something that is basically sound once they know when to retire.
Okay. Mario Rivera Martino, a living legend, a living history book. Thank you, Mario.
Okay.